My name is Brian Kajagian. I am the editor-in-chief of ClassicRockHistory.com. Today, I'm here with Jim Schuler of the George Thorogood and Destroyers Band, and a lot more than that. And he has a brand new album out with his band called Texas Scratch. So, Jim, there you go. That's the way to do it, man. So, Jim, I'm a New Yorker.
Yes,
so
sir.
I'm wondering, right? If Texas Scratch means something that I don't know about, is there a meaning behind the name Texas Scratch?
You have to ask the guy who named it, and he's from Long Island. It just means money. I'm not sure what the significance is. The guy that sort of oversaw this project and brought us all together came up with the name, and so I don't know, but I'm not quite sure, but I think it means money. It just sounds like a lottery ticket. It's been said to me, but it's growing on me, and yeah. So the guy that came up with the name is Arnie Goodman from Long Island. So
all right,
yeah.
Where in Long Island is he from?
Man, I don't.
Yeah,
I've been there and I've been to his house, but I couldn't tell you. It's been probably 15 years.
How do you compare? I don't know how much of Long Island you've seen, but how would you compare Long Island to Texas? You're from Texas, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, there's streets and there's cars.
Okay.
Culturally, they're worlds apart. But I've always liked New York and New Yorkers because there's no pretense and there's no. You'll speak what's on your mind, and I know where I stand, and I always like that better than somebody that's where they're just trying to be nice or they're telling you what you want to hear. I'd rather know where things stand, and then I can react accordingly. But New York City is my favorite city in the world.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, mine too. I mean, I've been to a lot of different cities. Sadly, I've never been to Texas, and that's a place that I definitely want to get there because I want to go see a Cowboy game. Are you a Cowboys fan?
I am. I grew up in Dallas. I used to go see them play in the 60s when Coach Landry was here. I mean, I saw Bob Hayes score a touchdown. I saw Meredith play. I met many of the old players back before it was such an enormous business. A lot of these guys had off-season jobs, like selling insurance or cars, because probably very few of them made more than like $40,000 a year at that time, which was a lot of money, 50 or 60 years ago, or a lot more than it is now.
But yeah, they were like musicians almost, a lot of musicians.
Right. We have to just take all those revenue streams and hope make something a little bit bigger. But yeah, I mean, if you ever come down, let me know and we'll go to AT&T Stadium.
Oh, that'd be cool. I mean, I remember watching the games in the 60s, late 60s more for me. And, watching Roger Staubach beat up on the Vikings all the time. Although sometimes the Vikings got to him. But he was one of the greatest quarterbacks I ever saw play. And
he was a little later. I mean, I guess he came in early
60s, early 70s. Okay.
Yeah, but he was obviously, he's still revered here in Dallas. He still lives in the area. He's a big commercial real estate guy, and he's he's just really done real well for himself. A lot of the players stay in the area because they've got a brand that's established here. I know Deion Sanders, I mean, maybe he's moved, but he was still living in Dallas, in the town of Prosper, just north of Dallas.
Now, are you from Dallas, or what area of Texas are you from?
Born in Dallas at Baylor Hospital. It's right on the edge of East Dallas and Deep Ellum.
Oh, so you're a true blue and white Dallas Cowboys fan. That's your team.
Yeah, my dad was born here in the 1920s, and the city's just exploded since then. It's now become I believe the fourth largest metropolitan area in the United States, which blows my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Chicago, LA, and New York are ahead of us.
So,
I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, so Jim, I mean, because this band that you have, obviously Texas Scratch, I mean, I would say it's very heavily influenced by Texas blues, or is it all different blues? How would you describe your band? I don't want to assume anything.
Well, I mean, it was just a me, you know, we decided to make a record, or somebody decided to like put us all together and do this record. So I was thinking about it yesterday, and a lot of the influences, especially like, you know, the stuff that Buddy's bringing to the table, real what stuff that reflects what we listened to in the 70s, like the heavy Texas boogie blues rock sound, probably most famously by somebody like Billy Gibbons. But there are other guys like the band Point Blank and John Nitzinger from Fort Worth, who wrote a lot of songs for Blood Rock. If you remember Blood Rock.
Yes, I do. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were a Fort Worth band. They had a deal on Capitol Records. They were managed by Terry Knight, who managed Grand Funk. So they had a lot of nice gigs at that time. But we grew up listening to that stuff, and there's a lot of that influence on it. And as I look at the tracks selections, yeah, I mean, it's a song I do on here called Purple Mountain Flask. It's kind of got a Free vibe, like the Paul Rogers and Free. And Showdown is like got a Hendrix thing.
I heard Ain't Got the Scratch, which is a great tune. And
Yeah.
to me, it had a bit of a ZZ Top vibe. That's what I heard.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming from with this. And that's Buddy's song. He's such a great lyricist, and is you know, obviously his playing is world class.
That's Buddy Whittington you're talking about.
Buddy Whittington, yeah.
Yeah. And he had played with John Mayo, Blues Breakers, correct?
He played with John for
Yep.
12 years at least, maybe 15. I can't remember.
And then I was listening to another song, because you have a couple of them out on YouTube I was listening to. There was another one I was listening to, I'd Rather Be Lucky Than Good. And to me, that had more of like a Jimmy Vaughn vibe. There was a groove to it that I kind of heard. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's just kind of what I heard.
I don't. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I don't really. It wasn't really on. You know, I wasn't thinking of that when I wrote it. It was just kind of a standard rock and roll groove, like, you know, an updated Chuck Berry groove, which is, you know, it's part of the parlance. And
Well, maybe there's a Texas influence there that's
oh yeah, I mean,
you know, hit him too.
I used to listen to a lot of Southern rock in my early years. I mean, I was really into those bands like the Allman Brothers and Skynyrd and Wet Willie and the Outlaws. And so, I mean, there's that sound. So by the time I got into blues, I mean, I already could play, you know, I was playing in clubs already, but, you know, it was, initially my idea of blues was just like something on the Allman Brothers album. And then I started to dig back a little deeper and educated myself. So I started to see like how everything was connected, and to this day, I still would rather listen to something from the 1920s or 30s than something new.
Well,
But
I mean, the roots of rock and roll is from that time period. I mean, that's where
right.
It all kind of begins, and it's interesting to see all the different acts and different bands who have taken that sound and gone different directions, and some who've kind of stayed in that direction. I mean, who was the biggest influence that you had? Like, what made you pick up your guitar?
Well, I mean, I always had loved music, but it just, you know, it just seemed like a fantasy thing to me. And then I went to a Lynyrd Skynyrd concert, like I was probably 15, and it was kind of like the light bulb went off. I thought, man, I think I can do this. Or I thought I could try. It looked like something I could do. I liked what they were doing. It was real simple. It was blue collar. They looked like they walked out of the audience. I like that. I wasn't really into you know, a lot of the prancing frontmen that were like so big back then. Although I did like the Stones a lot because you had Keith, the Offset, Mick. But you know, it's just a conglomerate of things. But initially, for me, picking up the guitar was probably that one Skynyrd show in 1976. Just see it. I mean, I was already playing, and I kind of could play a little of that stuff. And I thought, man, that's what I want to do.
I think it was the 76 tour, might have been 76. Well, it's around that time. They were touring with Ted Nugent and they played Long Island, and it was just mind blowing watching them play.
Yeah, I saw them with Ed King in '75. I don't really remember a whole lot about the show. I was kind of way back in the arena, and then the next year they came back in April, and Ed King had quit at that time, so it was a 2-guitar band, and that was like really strange. Like it was addition by subtraction. It was really powerful. And then they came back. Actually, it was on Thanksgiving 1976, and they had Steve Gaines in the band at that time, and that was great too. And then they had a plane crash 11 months later.
It was so tragic. I mean, it was just tragic to lose them as people. But when you think about, I thought the addition of Steve Gaines to that band, that Street Survivor album, they seem to be heading in some sort of new direction.
Yeah,
a new sound, and just always wondered where they would have went with that.
And I don't know, because that was right about the time. Let's see, Elvis died. Punk was starting to emerge. Disco was going on, but I think they would have weathered all that. I think they were kind of immune to those sort of things.
Oh yeah, I think they definitely would have triumphed over all that. I'm just curious as to what they were going to do, like where their sound was going.
Well, Ed King always said that they were a rock band fronted by a country singer. So I think they would have probably gone, not straight country, but I mean, I had seen it written that Ronnie Van Zant was supposed to do some recording with Merle Haggard, which would have been interesting.
Okay.
I don't know, album or a song, but I think there would have been solo albums, and who knows where it would have ended. But I got the impression when I was seeing them live, it was like watching a speeding train going toward a wall, because I mean they had that vibe around them. There was always fights and drinking, but it was like it was really exciting as a teenager.
They seemed to live what they were singing about.
They were. I mean, it was no. I mean, to me, a lot of the punk stuff, like the Sex Pistols, I mean, that was contrived. That was a pose. These guys were like real. So in that sense, it was more real to me. It was more like from the street.
Do you think you can really hear that in somebody's playing? And you listen to a guitar player or a piano player, can you hear it when it's real genuine? I mean, what do you hear to distinguish that?
Well, touches your heart. I mean, it's really something that's hard to put into words.
Yeah, I think you just did.
Well, I mean, it's like there's really a lot of really talented kids playing guitar now, but you hear them and it's almost like listening to a parrot, because it's, to me, they just play it what they're hearing, and there's no life experience behind them. To me, the struggle is part of the deal.
Yeah, because I teach piano, and when I teach kids the blues, I'm always thinking, well, they don't have any life experience. They never listen to this music, so it's very difficult to teach them how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's that old blues saying that goes for everybody: less is more. I think it's the space in between that is just as important as the notes that you play.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I've gotten to really enjoy like J.J. Cale, and I'm not what you call a minimalist guitar player, although I try to minimize what I play. I try to think about what I'm playing and what I'm trying to say, and let it breathe. Sometimes I want to play a lot of notes, but I mean, I'm not a shredder. But on the other hand, I'm not Jimmy Vaughn, so I don't know how I fit into the picture.
What's your approach? I mean, is it as a musician, as a blues player? I mean, there are some, I guess there's some blues musicians that learn all the scales, learn them in all the different keys, and use chord tones, and some just play by ear. I mean, what's your approach to playing blues?
when I'm playing, well, I listen first. I listen to what everyone else is doing, and I try to find a complementary part in
So,
terms of group. I mean, I would rather be in the ensemble than like pushing my way out front. I mean, I'd do that because it's necessary to live and survive. So I have to do that sometimes. But I'm really happiest is a part of a group, just having a musical conversation.
well, that and isn't that? I mean, that's really, I guess, what the blues is really all about. Especially from a group, you have to listen to each other.
Well, and I think with blues, I think initially it was a vocal uh, driven medium, and as times evolved, it's become guitar solo driven, and that's great. But I think everything should go back to the voice and the story, and everything else should serve that. It's dressing, window dressing for it.
So now you've been with George Thorogood since what, 1999? Is that
Yes.
correct? And is that how it works in the Destroyers? Is everybody just listening to each other, playing off each other, or is it more just contrived and this is what you have to do and this is what you have to do? How does that work?
Well, I mean, I'm there to play George's songs, so I try to honor what he wants to hear, and he's never been one to like tell me like you need to play this, you need to play that. He will suggest things, but he's always given me free reign. He trusts my decisions, I guess. So uh, it's it's pretty loose. I mean, but everybody has their role, and we all fill it. And I'm thrilled to be in the group, and it's been a great opportunity, and it's been a great ride for me.
Sure. So now what's the idea with Texas Scratch? This is a relatively new group, is it? Or have you been playing for a while?
Well, this band is this this album was recorded in 2009. We finished it in October of 2009. So I mean, I'm no math major, but I think that's like 14 years ago.
Okay.
So for various reasons, the release was held up, and so now it's out, and our first show will be, excuse me, Saturday, November 25th in Fort Worth at the Ridgely Room in Fort Worth, Texas. We'll be having a album release party.
Awesome.
So it was more of a studio project, and now we're going to do some more shows to promote it. We haven't done a show under the name probably since 2011.
All right. So this is a thing that's been around for a long time, but now you're going out and you're promoting your first, album release as Texas Scratch. That's very, very cool. Who plays drums on it?
Jeff Simon, the Destroyers drummer.
Oh, okay. So it's you and Jeff from the Destroyers, and then you have who else is in the band? Let's just go through the band.
Jeff Simon on drums, and the bass player is Nathaniel Peterson, who sadly passed away a few months ago in Italy. I was heartbroken to hear that. And,
yeah, I'm sorry for your loss there.
That's Nathaniel.
Okay.
There's Jeff, and there's Buddy behind Jeff, and there I am. And there's Vince Converse on guitar. Vince is from Houston. I'm from Dallas, and Buddy is from Fort Worth.
Now, when I was listening to one of the tunes, I thought I heard some keyboards in there. Who played keyboards?
That would be things. On Ferris. He plays with my group Monkey Beat.
Now, Monkey Beat, that's been around a long time. That's been your group since what, 1991, if I'm correct, or longer?
Yeah, recording was released in 93, 30 years ago.
And so is that group very still much alive? Are you still going to continue?
Oh yeah,
with that band?
It's alive. I've just been so busy with George the last 18 months. We haven't done a lot of shows. I mean, we've done tons of road work since the beginning of 2022. Lots of international stuff. So I mean, I was on the road a lot last year. We did 77,000 miles of travel and played, I believe, in 19 countries. So I didn't have a lot of time left for other endeavors. And the time I did have, I had to rest and recharge.
I'm sure that's got to be rough doing all that
It,
touring.
yeah, it's still active though, Brian. I just did a recording with Tyler Bryant. He has a band called The Shakedown. Do you know Tyler Bryant, The Shakedown?
I don't know them. No.
Tyler is he's in Nashville now. He's from Honey Grove, Texas, and I've known him since he was 12. And now he's you should really check these guys out. It's a
Oh, I
young
will.
and who are really good and they're doing it. Uh, it he's been out opening for like Guns N' Roses and AC/DC and ZZ Top and Jeff Beck. And I mean, he was sort of he wasn't a student, but he was somebody that used to come see us, and he was a fan. He would get up and play with us when he was very young, and now he's just playing rings around everybody. But we did this song in Nashville, and we'll put it out in 2024, called Dusty Groove, that we wrote and recorded. It's really cool. His wife Rebecca from Larkin Poe is singing on it. Are you hip to those guys, Larkin Poe?
Yeah, them I think I've heard of. Yeah.
Yeah. They're fantastic, but
Yeah.
they're
You're turning me on to all these new bands here. That's the beauty of interviews like this, is everybody gets to learn a little bit more about something they might not know about.
yeah. And there's another band I like called GA20. They're from Boston. It's a trio, 2 guitars and drums, no bass. It's kind of but it's not like the Black Keys. I mean, I don't know. It's more like Hound Dog Taylor and the House Rockers. But they're a great band, young guys, and I really like them a lot. There's a lot of younger players that are like Davey Knowles. I love Davey, Damon Fowler, Nick Schneblin. There's a lot of great players out there. Of course, Chris Stone, Kingfish is amazing.
Yeah, we interviewed him recently.
Yeah,
He's an amazing player.
Yeah,
I think I had interviewed Kenny Wayne Shepherd
Mhm.
I get about a year and a half ago, and he was playing with Buddy Guy and Kingfish. They were doing a big festival up in I think it was Woodstock. They were doing a big blues festival
Upstate.
summer. Yeah, yeah, upstate New York. So you've been around the world. You've played everywhere. What's your favorite place to eat? Have any particular favorite foods or favorite countries?
My favorite place to eat in the world is probably Doyle's Seafood in Sydney, Australia.
Now that's very specific.
Well, I think the entire experience of a meal at Doyle's, because it's on like the far side of Sydney Harbor, so we would always take a water taxi from the opposite, past the Opera House and that big bridge, and it's like a 20-minute water taxi ride. And when you're going across at night, it's spectacular at sunset. And the restaurant's right on the beach. The food is just amazing. Just it's not just the meal, it's the experience, I think. And that's one of my favorite parts of the world to visit too.
So
I just love it.
when you go to Australia, you make sure that you visit that place, I'm assuming, if it's your favorite place.
If I'm able, yeah.
Yeah.
Twice.
I mean, that's one of the pluses, right, about touring, is you get to see places like that and experience great stuff.
I'm grateful. I mean, I always still feel like a fan, and like when I meet people that were heroes to me or still are heroes, I never feel like I'm at anybody's level. I always still feel like the kid tugging on some guy's shirt, like, "Hey, mister."
Yeah, but I think that's just being a musician, being an artist. I mean, anybody who is an artist, who is a musician, is always wanting to learn more, always looking to experience. I mean, what started you to become a musician in the first place, right? It's fandom, isn't it?
Yeah, and it just seemed it seemed a lot like a better alternative to whatever the guidance counselor was tossing in my face. I just I just didn't want to have a conventional what we call a straight lifestyle, which was wear a tie, go to work, and I just seemed I was in for the adventure. That seemed a lot more appealing to me.
Was there something inside you that said, "Yeah, I can't do anything else. My heart won't let me do anything else. This is what I'm going to do."
Yeah, I guess so. I got a divorce like when I was in my mid-20s, and I had kind of put it aside. I was trying to make a living, and we had a daughter, and so but everything kind of fell apart. And at that point, I was it's some sort of a crossroads, and I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, I'd better go full throttle into it. I have no fallback plan. I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I think
Well, I'm not.
Van
I'm not
Morrison was. I'm sorry, Van Morrison once released an album called "No Plan B," which I always thought was such a brilliant title because it's really what you need is no plan B to make it in music.
Yeah, I think the fear of failure is a huge motivator too.
Yeah. But if you have a fallback, and I think that's true for anybody, if you have that fallback, life as a musician, I mean, unless you have a hit single, when you're 15 years old or 16 years old, can be pretty tough. And you just have to work hard. You have to push yourself hard and be able to deal with life as a musician.
Yeah, I wouldn't have wanted to have any kind of success at that age anyway. I think it warps you. I don't think you're ready for it.
You're probably right. Yeah.
I didn't make any real headway until I was in my 30s.
Would you say it's like all that club work you did, all the bars you played, where you really learned your craft?
Yeah, I mean, you got to like figure out who you are and what you're trying to do and what you're trying to say and how to say it, and then do good work and hope somebody that can help you helps you. Hope somebody hears you. I mean, you have to bring something. Obviously, I didn't mean like I was looking for a handout, but maybe a hand up.
No, of course. But I mean,
Yeah.
when you're playing clubs at a young age, and you go on a stage and nobody knows who you are, you got to be really good. You got to bring something to that audience for them to respond to you. It's not as if you're somebody famous all of a sudden and you walk on a stage where they already know who you are. They're already gonna applaud no matter what you do. It's like when you're first starting out and you're playing those clubs, and you have to earn that applause. You have to earn that respect of the audience. And, that's not easy to do. You have to know what you're doing.
Well, I think that's where it's good to be young and you have that energy and that drive. As you get older, it's harder to maintain that. I mean, you have the experience and things you can do to compensate, but there's no substitute for that youthful juice and that confidence you have when you're that age.
Sure. So, well, I don't want to hold you up any longer. I know you have other interviews to do, and I really enjoyed the songs that I've heard. I'm looking forward to getting a copy of the album, and I love the stuff. I love the stuff you're doing on there. I love the songs that I've heard so far, and I wish you all the best of luck with Texas Scratch, man.
Thank you, Brian. I enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, and I'll see you down the road. All right.
Okay, brother. Thank you.
All right, Jim. I'll see you next time, man.
Okay,
there it is, Texas Scratch. All right. Is there a website they can go to that you want to say to buy the album, or?
I would say just check all your usual platforms, Amazon, streaming platforms. There isn't an official Texas Scratch website at this time, but if you go to my website, which is jimsuhler.com, JIMSUHLER, there'll be other information about the band.
All right. I'll make sure I put all those links below the video and in the article.
Right on.
Appreciate it, man.
You bet.
See you next time, Jim. Bye-bye.
Anytime.